You're doing a great job. Let's jump right in. So our first writing journal, you'll be writing about what if everyone lived underwater? Where would people live? What games would the children play? And what would school be like? Can't wait to read that.
And so the next one is, what would you do if you were in the middle of a lake and your boat springs a leak?
Oh no.
How would you handle that situation?
And then, of course, Wednesday's free write.
And our next one, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
And Fiction Friday, you are going to write a fictional story where the main character survives an event. And so make sure it can be like a natural disaster, maybe getting lost in the woods, something like that, just surviving in an event, unusual circumstances.
Okay, and our weekly agenda, of course, we're going to go right through all of these things. Be sure you're reading it. Make sure you're doing all of those things.
And our objectives this week, we're going to read an excerpt from a novel, revise and edit text for clarity, use a new vocabulary. We're going to look at mental images or visualization, use context clues, write a friendly letter. We're going to talk about commas, and we're going to discuss imagery with vivid words.
And so we have some new vocabulary words for this week. They are reluctance, unrestrained, agonizing, reassure, and constraint.
Our first vocabulary word is reluctance. It's a noun. An unwillingness to do something. And you can see this man has his hands up like he doesn't want to do something. Her reluctance to get in the water was caused by her fear of sharks. Synonyms are hesitation, unwillingness. Antonyms are willingness, eagerness.
Our next word is unrestrained, doing something without control. Unrestrained, I ate every cookie in the jar. And you can see this little guy is eating the cookies. He is unrestrained. He's just going at it. Synonyms, uncontrolled or unchecked. Antonyms, restrained or restricted.
And then we have agonizing, and this is an adjective. It's a state of feeling great mental suffering and worry. And you can see in the picture here, she is kind of hunched over, holding her stomach. She's in pain. Some synonyms are excruciating and painful, and antonyms are bearable and acceptable.
And then we've got reassure. It's a verb. It says to give comfort or confidence to a person. We see a man with his arm on the shoulders of another young man, giving him reassurance. My boss reassured me that I'm doing a great job. Synonyms are encourage, comfort. Antonyms are alarm or worry.
And our next word, constraint, is a noun, something or someone that limits or restricts another's actions. So you see this guy has a ball and chain. He is limited. That's a constraint. It limits what he can do. And so our synonyms are limit or restriction. Antonyms, allow or help.
And so this week we are going to make some more inferences. And so we need to consider what we've learned about Sudan and when we read A Long Walk to Water and watching Salva's story. And then what can we infer is happening in this photograph here? So I infer that maybe they're dedicating a well, because I see the well in the picture and I also see a banner that looks like they're celebrating something.
Okay, so looking at this, I infer that this man has been lost in the woods and has just found a way maybe to go home, something that he recognizes, because he's in the woods and just that little section where he is kind of lighted up.
So I infer that this little girl just got bunnies for Easter because she's sitting there amidst some bunnies.
Oh, I infer that about this photograph. So I infer that someone who is decorating their log cabin has chosen this chair because it looks very rustic.
I infer that these are baby piglets that got left behind because I see them, I don't see a mom, and they just look like they're a little bit lost.
All right, our essential question this week: what does it take to be a survivor? So last week we read about Salva. We watched his story. This week we're going to read another story about someone who survives a big event.
And so our story this week, our quick start is, what do you know about the Titanic? Where did you get your information about the ship? And so whenever we say Titanic, that really springs to mind a lot of images and maybe a lot of prior knowledge. And so I think this week we're going to have a lot to build on already when we think about this story.
So the story that we're going to read this week is a memoir. Now that's a word you might not have heard before, but a memoir is a form of autobiographical writing. So it's going to be someone that's telling their story. Includes the writer's personal experiences and observations of significant events or people, often has informational or an intimate tone, so it sounds like it's coming from that person, presents insights into the impact of historical events on people's lives.
So this is written by a lady named Violet Jessup. She was born in 1887 and died in 1971. She was a stewardess on board the Titanic. So a stewardess is someone who works taking care of people's needs on a ship. And so she was there, obviously, for its first and only voyage in 1912. Because of its state-of-the-art construction, the Titanic was considered unsinkable. And if you've read or heard anything about the Titanic, you know that was a really big deal. They said it wasn't going to sink, and of course, it did. But because they thought it was unsinkable, it didn't carry enough lifeboats for all of its passengers. And so when the ship sank, Jessup, along with most of the women and children, were rescued on the lifeboats, but they had to leave behind lots of other people, including most of the men who were on board. So despite surviving 2 other disasters aboard ships, she continued to work aboard them until 1950. So she was on 3 different ships that had disastrous endings, and she continued to work on ships. Which tells me, I can infer, she probably really loved being out on the water.
And I can infer that she kept putting her one foot in front of the other. A lot like Salvadut, she had those characteristics of determination to get right back up even after something terrible in her life had happened for her several times.
So when we think about our essential question, what it means to be a survivor, we can think about those qualities that she had to help her keep on moving.
Yeah. And so our story this week, Into the Lifeboat, is going to follow Violet Jessup's story as she tells it in this memoir fashion.
So this week we're going to talk about analyzing the author's purpose and message. To explain the author's purpose, you begin by asking, why did the author write the text? It's important to know why the author is writing it because it helps you to know what you're supposed to be getting out of it. In the case of a memoir, the genre offers clues to the author's purpose. Memoirs are first-person accounts of historical events or moments in a person's life that are especially meaningful. The purpose is to recreate a moment in the author's own experience and enable the reader to understand that moment's significance. It's kind of like you're going into that person's memory and you're reliving one of their memories about something major that's happened to them.
So the author's message is what the author wants you to take away. So an insight, a personal connection, a deeper understanding. To explain the author's message within a text, think about these questions. What does the author want the reader to feel? Remember, you can look at the different clues. If we think back to Salva's story, when they were talking about the sleek, evil bird, that helps you understand how the author wants you to feel about that airplane. Not good feelings, right? So look for those different kinds of clues, the language that the author used to describe, and that'll help you understand how they want you to feel, kind of the tone. What main idea or theme is the author presenting? So what is the author focused on? What are they presenting to you the most? That will help lead you to their purpose and their message. To see if your ideas about the author's purpose and message are on the right track, find evidence. That's what we've been working on this whole year, finding evidence in text. Text evidence supports your ideas and refines your understanding of the author's purpose and message.
And we're also going to work on creating mental images this week. And so authors choose words that create mental images that establish a text setting, the action, and the characters. And vivid descriptions help us see the pictures in our minds. Creating mental images as you read will help you understand the author's purpose and message, as well as identify the evidence to support your ideas. So creating a really great mental image is going to help you understand the text better. And so we're going to look at some examples.
Okay, so here are some examples of that. Descriptive language: a tiny breeze, the first we had felt on this calm night, blew an icy blast across my face. So the mental image that you get is you're using the words breeze and calm. They're opposites of icy blast, and so they're creating tension and a sense of sudden danger. Something bad's about to happen. As the ship seemed to right herself like a hurt animal with a broken back. So similes are something that authors often use to compare, and this simile compares the ship to an injured animal. And so you can imagine a creature that's too injured to survive, but fights to live. That's what they're saying with the ship. It's like an animal. It's going to fight to live. It's not going to go down until the last second.
And that's a really kind of a brutal mental
Yeah.
image. Like, that doesn't make me feel very
No.
good inside.
Yeah.
And that's why the author chooses a lot of times to use those similes and metaphors. They're trying so hard to get you to picture what that's like so that you can get those feelings. And if you become part of that story, it's almost like you're playing a video in your head of what's happening.
So as you read, note the author's word choices and imagery. So we're going to look at this. You could almost imagine this a scene of busily curious people with not very much to do. True, there were officers and men briskly getting lifeboats ready to lower, their tense faces strangely in contrast to the well-ordered groups wondered about. So this presents a very big contrast of people. So you have busily curious people with not much to do. So they're just wandering around, watching. They don't have anything to do. They don't have any jobs or anything, so they just want to know what's going on. Compare that to these officers briskly. Briskly means in a quick, strict fashion. They're getting these lifeboats ready to lower. Their faces are tense. They know that this is not good, that bad things are about to happen, and they're trying to make sure that they're getting these lifeboats prepared. They also know, even though the passengers don't know this, they know there are not enough lifeboats for all the people on the ship. And so it's a really interesting contrast, and you can picture that in your brain of these people just kind of wandering around. They have no sense of danger yet, compared to the officers who understand clearly what the danger is at this point.
And so this week we're going to also start some grammar lessons, and we are going to talk about commas again. And in this lesson, we're going to learn about the correct use of commas in complex sentences, transitions, and introductory elements. And we've kind of hit on this before, but we're really going to get into it now. Commas set dependent clauses and phrases off so that a reader can quickly grasp the sentence's meaning. The following example from the text shows a comma use in a complex sentence. So we have fascinated, my eyes never left the ship, as if by looking I could keep her afloat. And so we have a introductory word, fascinated, my eyes never left the ship, comma. And so if we look at the comma usage, this makes it a complex sentence because we're adding that, I'm forgetting the word.
The dependent and independent
Clauses.
Yes. So
I forgot the word.
My eyes never left the ship is our independent clause. And we have a dependent clause tacked on to the end. And so this is a very complex
Well,
sentence.
and if you read
Yes.
the sentence without the commas, fascinated, my eyes never left the ship, as if by looking I could keep her afloat. When you read something without the commas, it takes away kind of, it takes away the feeling towards the sentence, but also you can just hear that doesn't sound quite right. And so that's a good check when you put those commas in. You're taking that pause so that you can get those mental images in your brain.
And when you're looking at your commas practices this week for your grammar, you're welcome to read the sentences aloud. So you'll be given one sentence, and you'll have to figure out where the comma goes. And so you can read it several different ways to figure out where that comma goes.
I had a friend doing that with his journal this week. He brought it up to me and said, I know I have some problems, and I don't know where my commas or my periods go. And so I read it to him just like he had written it. And he looked at me and said, that doesn't sound good. But when he started reading it out loud, he started hearing, oh, that needs a comma, that needs a period. I have a thought here. So it's important to do that with your writing, even in your journals and all of your things that you're doing. So let's do a little practice. Where does the comma go? At last, I got to go to the beach.
Huh. Well, I feel like there might be an introductory phrase there.
I think so too.
At last.
I think our comma needs to go right there because you've got the little introductory part. You're giving everybody a chance to lean in to go, at last what? Well, at last, I got to go to the beach.
Yep. And a little check for that. If you take off at last and read, I got to go to the beach, that's a complete sentence all by itself.
Yep.
I watched the sparkling dancing waves roll across the horizon. Ooh, okay. I see some adjectives here. And whenever you have a list of things or adjectives, you need commas to go in between. Again, helping you make that mental picture. I watched the sparkling, comma, dancing waves roll across the horizon.
Yep.
Later in the afternoon, we got ice cream from the truck. This is a lot like our first sentence. I see an introductory phrase. So when I'm going through there and I'm thinking, what part of the sentence can I read by itself and it makes sense? We got ice cream from the truck makes sense all by itself. So my comma needs to go before that. Later in the afternoon, we got ice cream from the truck. It tasted delicious even when it dripped down my chin. Again, I'm thinking that I see where it goes. I would say it goes after it tasted delicious because that makes sense all by itself and the other part doesn't.
Yep.
Even when it dripped down my chin is not a sentence. So that comma is going to be an important part to bring those two clauses together.
All right. So commas, again, they help us communicate and clarify ideas by grouping words together to form units of meaning in a sentence. So here are some different ways we can use commas. To set off dependent clauses. So remember, dependent means that it cannot be by itself. It's dependent on something else. So in the complex sentences, you have to set off these dependent clauses with a comma. A few women near me started to cry loudly when they realized a parting had to take place. Now, we can stop right there. That is a complete sentence, an independent clause by itself. This next part, their husband standing silently by,
That's not a sentence.
it's not. It is a little dependent clause that they've tacked on to add extra information. So we have to separate that with a comma. To set off transitions that link different words and phrases. Fascinated. My eyes never left the ship. As if by looking, I could keep her afloat. We looked at this one before. Fascinated. That right there is our little introductory phrase. It's just a transition word. And then we add another comma before that dependent clause.
Well, and this part of the sentence is the only part that makes sense by itself.
Yep.
My eyes never left the ship. The other two, you can't, they're not sentences. So they have to have those commas or it's not going to make sense.
Exactly. And so to set off introductory elements, instead, I listened to the faint sounds of music from Jock's Men. So instead is a little introductory element. We set that off with a comma. I listen to the faint sounds of music from Jock's Men is a complete sentence all by itself.
And so using commas and other punctuation incorrectly can cause confusion and misunderstanding. For example, comma splices incorrectly connect two independent clauses without a conjunction, such as and or but. And so we have an incorrect example. She agonized over leaving the ship. She eventually did go. She agonized over leaving the ship is a complete thought. It's an independent clause. She eventually did go is also an independent clause that can stand by itself. So if we want to connect these two, we need to put one of those conjunctions. So she agonized over leaving the ship, but she eventually did go. And then we have the correction right here. She agonized over leaving the ship, but eventually she did go. So we have to add that conjunction there for it to make sense.
In a run-on sentence, punctuation might be missing altogether. Remember, a run-on sentence is a sentence that runs together, just doesn't even make sense. They don't have their periods where they need to be. So, the steward did not smile, he served the musicians. Well, that doesn't make sense the way that it's written there. It just runs a bunch of things together. So we're going to use our comma in this case, we're going to use our punctuation to help us make that sentence sound correct. The steward did not smile. That's a complete thought. So we have to end it with a period. He served the musicians. When we had it all together, it was too much, and it just didn't make sense. Listen again. The steward did not smile, he served the musicians. But when you slow it down and you realize you've got two complete thoughts, subjects and verbs, the steward did not smile, he served the musicians. Now it makes sense. You can get a mental image of what that looks like.
So where does the comma go? I wanted to stay, but I decided to go. Okay, that is a run-on sentence. I see that I have two complete thoughts. I wanted to stay, I decided to go. My conjunction is there, so I need to put my comma right before my conjunction. Sadly, I forgot my favorite shoes. I hate when that happens.
Me too.
Well, I forgot my favorite shoes is a complete thought. That is an independent clause. So sadly must be an introductory element. So I'll put a comma right there. I wanted to go back and get them, but my mom said no. I wanted to go back and get them as a complete thought. My mom said no as a complete thought. I have my conjunction, so add a comma right there. I cried silently in the back seat, my shoes left far behind. This is a very dramatic story. I cried silently in the back seat is a complete thought, an independent clause. My shoes left far behind is a dependent clause.
Makes sense by itself.
So I have to put my comma right there to separate them.
And this week we're also going to have another revising and editing section. And so we have this paragraph that we're going to look at. And then we're going to figure out what transition word or phrase would best be added to the beginning of sentence 5. So let's look at our paragraph. I get hungry just thinking about it. It doesn't really matter what kind of cheesecake it is. I will eat it no matter what. I love it so much, I might even eat green bean cheesecake. It all started when Grandma made it for my 8th birthday. I was a little disappointed not to have cake with Ninja Turtles on it, but my disappointment soon turned into pure happiness. She encouraged me to give it a try. I was sold after just one bite. Ever since then, it has become a tradition to have cheesecake on my birthday. Grandma even put a Ninja Turtle toy on top of the cheesecake. And so we're going to look at sentence 5, and we're going to figure out which transition best fits. And so we have, I'm going to turn this way because I can't see. So sentence 5 says, I was a little disappointed not to have a cake with Ninja Turtles on it. And since we're looking at a transition word, we need to look at the sentence before it too, so we can figure out how to best connect them. So it all started when Grandma made it for my 8th birthday. And then we can look at our transition words. At first, I was a little disappointed not to have a cake with a Ninja Turtle on it, but my disappointment soon turned to pure happiness. That kind of sounds okay. Like at first I was a little
Yeah,
disappointed,
because
but it got
there
better.
is a change.
There's a
Something
change going
happened
on.
first,
Yeah.
and then something happened second.
But I know that we need to look through the other
Oh,
ones
yeah.
just to make sure. So it all started when Grandma made it for my 8th birthday. However, I was a little disappointed not to have a cake with Ninja Turtles on it, but my disappointment soon turned to pure happiness. I'm not sure however is the best fit there.
I went to work, however, I also went there. That just doesn't sound like
Yeah.
it works
It
when
doesn't
I think
kinda
about what
fit.
the word however means.
Yeah. And so, for example, it all started when Grandma made it for my 8th birthday. For example, I was a little, well, that one doesn't
make
sound,
sense at all.
yeah.
And usually there's one of these that absolutely
Yeah.
sounds horrible.
For
You can rule that out.
And we
right
don't even
away.
have to continue the sentence.
No.
For example, just So it all started when Grandma made it for my 8th birthday. Additionally, I was a little disappointed not to have a cake with Ninja Turtles. We're not really adding anything
Not
by
adding
that.
anything.
And so it looks like the best answer choice would be A at first. Like at first I was a little disappointed, but then
I changed
I
my
changed my
mind.
mind.
Things got better. Okay, so the next one says, what transition word or phrase could best be added to the beginning of sentence 6? So now I know that I'm going to have to use sentence 5 and 6 to figure this out. So I'm going to go ahead and read 5 and 6, and I'm going to try my choices out. I was a little disappointed not to have a cake with Ninja Turtles on it, but my disappointment soon turned into pure happiness. However, she encouraged me to give it a try. Okay, I'm going to try my next one. I was a little disappointed not to have a cake with Ninja Turtles on it, but my disappointment soon turned into pure happiness. Next, she encouraged me to give it a try. What do you think? Next. Okay, let's try the next one. I was a little disappointed not to have a cake with Ninja Turtles on it, but my disappointment soon turned into pure happiness. After that, she encouraged me to give it a try. Well, that sounds a lot like next, doesn't it? Does to me. It's just kind of, yeah, you're doing the next step. Now let me try the next one. I was a little bit disappointed not to have a cake with Ninja Turtles on it, but my disappointment soon turned into pure happiness. To my surprise, she encouraged me to give it a try. I don't know about that one either. What do you think? Let's think about these. Why would however be the answer? Why would you pick that one?
Well, if you read it, I was a little disappointed. However, she encouraged me to give it a try.
Now
That
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense. So
So-
one thing that we can do is we can take all of, because that was a lot to read, and I know students have told me in the past that they get tired of reading all of those words over and over,
again.
and they get to where they can't even hear what
Yeah.
they're reading, or their mind starts tuning out. So one of the things that you can do is take the part of the sentence that makes sense without all the extra details and try it out, and usually you hear it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that way you don't get tired of reading all of those words, because that's a lot to read.
Yes. What transition word or phrase could best be added to the beginning of sentence 7? So she encouraged me to give it a try. Also, I was sold after just one bite. So also tells me we're adding something,
That
and
doesn't
I
sound
feel like
right.
that doesn't,
Mm-mm.
we're not adding anything here. She encouraged me to give it a try. To my surprise, I was sold after just one bite. Okay, that-
You're surprised by something.
yeah, that kind of
Okay,
makes
that
sense.
kind of makes sense.
She encouraged me to give it a try. At last, I was sold after just one bite. I feel like at last would kind of come at the end of a
Yeah,
story,
that
the
don't make
last
very
thing
much
that
sense.
happened.
Yeah.
She encouraged me to give it a try. Additionally, I was sold after just one bite. Again, we're not
Not
adding
adding
anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like to my surprise is the best answer
I think
there.
so too.
Yes. And so now we're going to look at a transition word or phrase to the beginning of sentence 9. So ever since then, or so starting at sentence 8, ever since then it has become a tradition to have cheesecake on my birthday. On Saturday, Grandma even put a Ninja Turtle toy on the top of the cheesecake.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of very specific?
I don't remember them saying a day
Yeah,
anywhere in
that's
here.
kind of weird.
Okay, so it has become a tradition to have cheesecake on my birthday. The next day, Grandma even put well,
Why would Grandma put that on your cake the
The
day
next
after
day,
your
your
Do
birthday?
you get a birthday cake every
Every
day?
Yeah, well, if you're lucky, but not
Okay.
most people.
it has become a tradition to have cheesecake on my birthday. Every year, Grandma even put a Ninja Turtle toy on the top of the cheesecake.
Yeah, I
then
feel like
that
we're getting
makes-
better.
We're getting
I say
better.
We're getting better
We're getting
because
better.
at least we're talking about your birthday being a year.
It has become a tradition to have cheesecake on my birthday. The next year, Grandma even put a Ninja Turtle toy on top of the cake.
Okay.
I feel like
Oh,
that
one makes
probably
sense.
the
More
one that makes the
sense.
most
sense.
sense.
Yes. So the next year is the best transition between those two sentences.
And again, that letter C sounded good
Uh-huh.
because you usually have one answer that you can throw out right away. You know it's wrong. And then you usually have one that you go, I don't think that one's right. It seems like you always get down to two
Mm-hmm.
that sound like, okay, these are pretty good. You always just have to pick the best one. All right, so this week we're going to be writing a friendly letter. A friendly letter describing a crowded or disorganized situation that you've seen or experienced.
Huh.
It could be at a sports event, in the cafeteria, on the bus, or another place where you've seen disorganized, I would say chaos. Follow these instructions and format to compose your letter. Use the letter conventions such as a date at the top, a greeting, and a closing that are appropriate for a letter to a friend. So you wouldn't put love
Right.
because if it's somebody that's a friend. Write in the informal, familiar tone you would use with a friend. Well, I guess you could love your friends. I guess you could. Help the reader imagine what it was like to be at the scene by using vivid descriptions to create mental images. When revising, check for correct use of commas. It's a big one.
All right, and when you're finished, guys, you are done. Remember, let us know if you need anything. Make sure that you are attaching work, submitting work, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.